I have a quick quiz for you. Do you recognize the face sitting right next to me? If you don't, well, you're not a true 90s kid. You are just that Instagram kid who says, I'm a 90s kid. Because if you are a 90s kid, you know this man. As I was just calling him the granddaddy of quizzing. And also, interesting trivia, which I understand you hate the word, but interesting trivia. Also, the man who brought you the biggest quiz show in India. Kaun Banega Crorepati. Welcome, Siddhartha Basu is here with us, and he's going to be talking to us about the new show that he's bringing in. Mr. Basu, 20 years you have not been a quizmaster. You've been behind the scenes. Then why now? I thought you had outsourced your job to the stars and the, all the...
I was happy to do that. Hi, first of all, and very welcome to everybody who's watching this. You were off by a little bit when you said 90s, because in terms of quizzing, 1985, which is right in the 80s, and I was in university in the 70s, and I was born mid-50s, so I'm a dinosaur.
I'm born in the 70s, end of 70s, but I call myself a 90s kid because I have grown up in the 90s.
Of course, I understand.
So this is that is why. So the Instagram 90s kids are the ones who were born in the 90s.
Yes,
we are the true 90s kids.
All right. So as I said, because and one has been doing a whole kind of range of programs, but of course, quizzes is one of the things we are best known as for, and those questions haven't stopped dogging our every step. So we continue to do that, and we try and do as much as possible. We've done shows like Cultivating, but we've also done 4, I think, wonderful seasons of Newsways here at India Today. With kids who were just crackerjack. They were phenomenal. It's you can see it, I think, on your platform, or maybe just on even YouTube.
You have quizzed generations in India. Do you think that the culture of quizzing has changed, or the interest generally amongst the children? I remember, like, every Sunday it used to be, like a big thing for us.
9 p.m. Sunday.
Yeah,
9 p.m.
just sit down and watch that quiz. And maybe our parents pushed us to it. I don't remember properly. But do you think the culture has changed because there's
lots
too
of
much
things
content?
have changed. To begin with, technology, the mediums have changed.
Yes.
Right? There used to be one news channel, remember?
Yes.
That was Doordarshan. And you heard what it is. It had a lovely balance, actually, at one point of time. It didn't
and
have
lovely
sensationalism. You didn't have all that. However, we're not just talking about nostalgia here, but there was one terrestrial network.
Yes.
And it was only from 82, after the Asia, that it came into its own. And 85, we quiz time, the National Inter-College quiz that I did. I was just hosting that. That was one of the few independently produced shows on television. Every night, only at 9 and 9:30 would you have independently produced programs.
So you turned producer at that time?
First 2 I hosted, then from 86 I turned producer, because I tried to take things in my hand to keep creative control, really. That's the reason, not for business reasons so much as just to keep control over different aspects of the thing. So Quiz Time was one. We've done many shows over the years. Anjali, quiz shows and knowledge shows are just one of them, but we've done current affairs. There was a show we used to do called A Question of Answer with Veer Sanghvi for 2 years. It was a very vigorous, very well-informed current affairs debate, which presaged the big fight and this and that and everything like that. And it had more to do with light than heat. But terrific. We had a sitting prime minister attending one of the sort of debates and taking part, I.K. Gujral at that time.
Oh my God.
He choppered into APJ and then he came for the recording. We had all sorts of people. Our present
Imagine
prime minister.
the prime minister in a quiz show.
Yes, our present Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, he came a number of times as just as a spokesperson for that political party and side, and he would come and speak. Among many other people who came, we had lawyers, we had opinion leaders, thought leaders, and it was a very lovely program. That was current affairs. But what I'm trying to say is we've done that, we've done science shows, we've done legal shows like Aapki Kacheri with Kiran Bedi, which she was. Sort of people argued their cases themselves, civic cases, and it was alternate dispute redressal, and she would sort out issues. So it was sort of
something like Judge Judy and
people scored a whole lot of shows in that area. But that year, the year that we did that, it had a higher average rating than any other factual entertainment show on entertainment television.
So
It was more than a show that we were doing with Shahrukh. It was more than a show that we were doing in the
With
same year
Salman?
with Salman. That year, the highest
but
rating.
what about Amitabh Bachchan? I mean,
That happened in 2000. That year, it was not happening.
Yeah,
So that year, that was what was happening, and all of them have delivered sort of hit shows and many others. We worked in 9 languages, incidentally, on different kinds of shows.
but
And now we've stepped back from production. So let's put it like that. What has changed is mediums have changed, technology has changed.
why a quiz show now? I mean, how is it different? How is it different from what you've done earlier?
So really, Quizzer of the Year picks up, in one sense, Newswiz has this in common, that it's senior school students from class 9 to 12. But what is, I think, novel about this is that it's completely digital. It's an all digital engagement. And let me explain that. Same time last year, around the same last year, we began an app, an interactive quiz app, which anybody could play. It was open to everybody.
Okay.
You can just play a snap quiz of 7 questions and see where you stand instantly. So you can measure your info queue. You can see where you stand in respect to other students, in respect to the open community, meaning people who are not just students, could be anybody. And on a daily, weekly, ongoing basis, you could measure that. That platform, that app was also the gateway to an All India Inter-School contest for this target group that we spoke of, for senior school kids, because there hasn't been anything like it for a long time for
Yes,
them.
that's true.
So, for that reason, and it's general knowledge, so for students from all over the country, all the selection tests and the screening happen digitally.
Oh,
And there's a bunch of zonal programs, which is like 16 zonal rounds, which we did according to North, South, East, West, like that. And by 2 very competent and energetic quizmasters, Colonel Vembu Shankar and Joy Bhattacharya. They've conducted those rounds. That's also on Sony Live. And anybody can tune in and see. And that was recorded entirely digitally, which means that the contestants were sitting in their schools or their homes. The host was sitting here. We were recording separately and put it all together. It's only the last 7 rounds,
right.
which was shot in a studio very close by to your office over here, which I was asked to host. They wanted a granddaddy to do it. So I've done just those 7, and those will be telecast. The others are on every day, they're dropping one. But from next month, every weekend, they'll be dropping the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the grand final of Quizzer of the Year, Koti.
Okay. Okay, so you sort of perfected the format where you brought in quiz and then you brought in entertainment as well, That was something, of course, internationally, everybody knew who wants to be a billionaire or millionaire. No, you can't be a billionaire just by answering a few questions.
You can. Sometimes people
can
are charged, actually. When we started, there was a challenge to the show. My competing channel, they called it Sawal 10 crore ka.
Ah.
Then there was
I will apply for this
crore. Which was 5 crore, and so on and so forth. So all that happened at that time.
No, I love the names that were there at that time. Some by you also and some by others also. There was a Kamzor Kadi Kaun.
That was one of our shows.
She even, I think Neena Gupta had a whip also with her.
She didn't. It was how should I put it? Her attitude.
Yes. She was a hard taskmaster. And she would do like this. I think this is like a precursor to all the anchor poses, standing like that.
But that was at that time, that show internationally was doing well.
Was it?
Weakest Link. It was
the Weakest Link.
Okay. Anne Robinson typified, symbolized that. And they were the licensors, which was BBC, they were very, very particular about how it could be done. They sent these flying producers to monitor it, and they would come and say, maybe have a word. And I said, what? He said, we think the host smiled. So everything was supposed to be black. And if there was a hint of silver, they would object to that. And
one show where the host is not allowed to smile.
On that show, it was like that. And then, there was an interviewer who had come from England to talk about the show because it's majorly happening there, and said, of that show particularly, to what degree do you think grown Indian men would like to be chastised by a woman in black? So I think the whip would have completed it, and maybe that was a thing.
I don't know. In my mind, actually, I remember her with a whip. I don't know why. Maybe it was a tongue lashing that she gave, but yes.
That, it didn't go down so well over here, partly because I think people didn't like it didn't like that
Her
the stern
strictness
approach.
and the
I didn't like it.
in India,
Though
it's
I think she
perceived
did it
as
well.
rudeness. I think that's why we
It is,
like
Anne
to
Robinson
be.
is rude, but I mean
She
that is
is,
a
but
way
in
of hosting. There's another show which was it was called and it was happening at that time when they did it over here. It was called America's Most Insulting Show. It was called Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Which we did here. क्या आप पांचवी क्लास से तेज है? But यहाँ पे एक दो बार बाकी the channel people said यार हमारे पत्रकार लोग बोल रहे हैं बिहार यूपी वगैरह से बता रहे हैं कि आप बड़ों की बेइज्जती कर रहे हैं ऐसे मत करिए. So they said make it sweet. We said but that's the opposite of what the phone. The exit line was मैं पांचवी पास से नहीं हूँ.
But I think that would work now.
God knows.
I feel that today's generation, the Gen Z, who you are catering to with your new show, they are more in your, like they say it on your face. They're more,
maybe
they're not into pandering. And our generation was like, बड़ों को नमस्कार करो, छोटों से प्यार से बात करो. Now it's all about self-care. I am comfortable and I will say my mind.
Well, to some extent, maybe Anjali, you're right, but I suspect it's a small sliver of people who feel that way. By and large, it's a sanskari desh which is becoming more and more sanskari in ways you and I wouldn't have dreamt of in the 90s. So, in that sense, I think certain things you have to walk the line and think that's one of the things that makes Mr. Bachchan such a, sort of a
he's
apposite,
perfect.
because, he walks that line in terms of, the warmth, the elegance, the empathy. He walks that, and by the same time, he's playful, he's fun, he can do it.
Yeah.
But I think he fits that, and he fits that very well. And then it's its own place. Now, every show doesn't have to be like that in that way. So,
That's true.
God knows.
Not everybody can be Mr. Bachchan.
And, if you were deciding programming, maybe you should say, इस तरह का program करो. No, how many times at one stage when there was an explosion of, when streaming just began and everything, they said, do Sach Ka Samna now.
Sach
Ka Samna now. He said, boss.
That's a format of truth or dare kind of a
no, it was called Moment of Truth.
Moment of Truth.
It was a Colombian format, which they tried to do in the States. They didn't have it. In most parts of the country, they couldn't swallow it. Some countries it went on. In Spain, for instance, in other countries, sort of it did well. But that was, I think, our version of it is one of the most. It was one of the first psychologically delving, in one sense, mature, and we tried to make it balanced. So we weren't very keen to call people just liars for the sake of it. We allowed them to say what it is, but without justifying things which would cross the moral or societal lines or whatever it is. But hopefully people understood why somebody did something, but not necessarily condoning it.
Okay.
And certainly not condoning what is, say, criminal or legal or anything like that. But you got insights on what people are thinking.
But I also feel when you experimented with all these formats, there was very less judging happening, or even if there was judging happening amongst us, it was not reaching you. Today, if you do something, you put it out, there'll be 10 million.
You're telling me, I've been there
comments
and I've heard
telling
that kind
you
of thing.
your job.
Not just job, it is, how in the sense of today, the world of alternate facts and misinformation propaganda rules so much. They are not interested in facts or truth. A large number of people, not everybody.
It's the post-truth era.
Our job is, as journalists, as program producers, as communicators, I think it's our job to put the truth out there. A national motto which we were built on was Satyameva Jayate, not Asatyameva Jayate. It's not whatever I want to believe. Whether there isn't a basis to it or not, or it is. History is what I wanted to believe. Science is what I wanted to believe.
But then a lot of people, I've seen that, especially in my generation, people who were born in, let's say, late 70s and everything, they blame everything on the education system and say, oh, we've been taught this is wrong, and that is why we don't have that,
questioning spirit.
Yes.
Well, that's one of the things we hope, and that's one of the reasons that we develop something like Quizzer of the Year, which is that to develop a curiosity, because I think that's one of the key drivers of knowledge, want to find out and to take pleasure in finding out, a skeptical, questioning spirit. Don't take for granted at face value anything that you say in print or anybody thinks that something somebody tells you or on WhatsApp or whatever it is. Don't take for granted. Figure out how to find out things for yourself. And some of the interesting quiz questions are things that you always thought it was one thing and it turns out to be something else.
That's true.
You know, so that's one of the things which makes it interesting. And how do you find that out? Because in one sense, you think it's so easy. We never had anything like the internet when we first started doing this show.
Oh my God, the
Is
research that you would have had to
absolutely,
do for every
libraries,
single question.
special
Oh my God.
subscriptions, how to get to the reference section, all the kind of thing. And 34 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica,
Oh,
Ramayana,
yes.
Manorama, this, that, the
Those.
other.
You could lift weights with
But
them.
that didn't cover everything.
Yeah.
And how do you do that and how you could figure that out? So in that environment, to have a questioning spirit and figure it out, that's one of the things that we try and do. You must check out the app. It's on Sony Live. It's free, no subscriptions required. It's called Quiz of the Year. Check it out.
Yes.
You can play every day and you can catch up any time of the week. So check it out. And of course, for students, it was the gateway to an All India Inter-School contest.
That's true.
And with very good recognition, because now the zonal rounds are on. You can tune in and see what they are, and all recorded digitally.
Okay, that's
on a video conference platform, but yet with the graphics, games, teams stitched together, everything like that. And mind you, the contestants and students were sitting in their homes or schools.
that's convenient. I mean, so finally you have a quiz show which has come to you. You don't have to sit next to the buzzer, and it's slightly different.
There was a
format,
buzzer in it too. Remote.
Ab
dekhte raho. And there's a lot of interesting games in it too. And here, so the first 16 were conducted by colleagues who are very good quiz masters with a lot of josh, zest.
I did
Colonel
see
Bambu
some
Shankar, you
clips.
did. One is by Joy Bhattacharya and one is by Bambu Shankar. The last 7 we just recorded. They asked the granddaddy to host it. So I've recorded the
So here he is listening to my spiel. But now I have some quick questions that I want to ask you. Let the quiz master be quizzed. But this is not like a right or wrong answer. I want to know something about you.
Okay.
So you've worked with so many people, and some of my personal friends actually, they worked for you because we all started our careers in Synergy was such a big place. But when you worked with your hosts, so many hosts you've worked with, who's your favorite? I don't say Amitabh Bachchan. Everybody says Amitabh Bachchan, not Amitabh Bachchan.
Actually, I'm going to give you an answer which is even more, how should I say, atomized in the sense that I don't believe I have a favorite host. Amitabh Bachchan, of course, is a league on his own. However, apart from that, as I said, we worked in 9 languages. I can start numbering the people, not just superstars, other people we worked with, and I think very successfully. But just to name people from cinema who worked, in Hindi, there has been Amitabh Bachchan, there's been Shahrukh Khan, there's been Salman Khan. We've had somebody like Rajiv Khandelwal, who I think made a fabulous host of Sach Ka Samna.
Sach Ka
There's been
Samna.
Kiran Bedi, who for the first time was, driving a show like Aapki Kacheri. That's at one level, but also in different languages. In Telugu, we've done Nagarjuna and Chiranjeevi, we've done Shatrughan Sinha. In Bhojpuri, we've done Saurav Ganguly. In Bangla, and
Lots. All I can say
so
is
many
lots.
people, in various languages I've named. In Marathi, there is Ritesh Deshmukh, Sachin Khedekar. We've done one
Okay,
in
I will
Kashmiri.
reframe my question because this list doesn't seem to be ending.
No,
Okay,
no.
so I will say, who was the easiest to work with? Like, you would not care, okay, yeah, this person will.
It's easy and difficult. I wanted to tell you this, and I've been asked this a number of times in the sense of, people have different approaches to doing it.
That's true.
Mr. Bachchan, I've often said, and long 2-hour chat I had with Lalan Top, I've explained that he's like the ideal student, the one who sits in the first row. He does all his homework.
Yes.
He prepares as much for the 1500 show as he did for the first show. He does his homework.
And if it's a long recording, he comes with his packed lunch also.
No, but that in any case, because there's the vanity vans, all that is but he comes ahead of time and he sort of prepares and he goes in and does. That's one. On the other, in a very different way, the person who works is Shahrukh, who is so quick on the pickup, and he's. The teleprompter operator gets depressed because he doesn't seem to want to look at the teleprompter. He wings it because he thinks on his feet. He wings it completely.
He's a charmer.
And he seemed to be, so you get it like that. However, on television, the shows that he's done haven't worked as well. For what reason, I've still not been able to figure out, because he's one of the most natural and easiest hosts to work with, I believe.
He is a person, even as a guest, does not require a host. I've anchored with him, and
Yes,
he does not need you. He will hold the show on his
You
own.
can figure it out. So there's people like that. Now Salman, he has a fantastic connect with his constituency, the viewers, because there's something guileless and filterless about him, which people like, and he's had fantastic longevity.
Yes. He has some massive fan following.
Yeah,
Yes.
and his shows I'm talking about. I'm talking the
yeah.
television shows.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
They've had exceptional longevity, and that means there's also a certain connect because he has an explosive sense of fun and spontaneity, which he doesn't get checked. And the other stuff, of course, is managed by the team, the producer team, and so on and so forth. These are to name just a few. So you have different people, but ideally, in a real-time show, which is recorded from beginning to end, you need somebody who can take it through with the graph, with the drama, while connecting, being aware of a multicam situation, the graphic cues, the music cues, the guests, the viewers, the messages, it stitches it all together. You do a lot of that in news, but this is, how should I say, it's on a bigger scale,
It's much bigger
in a more
scale.
complex
That's
way.
true.
Is that? But I had great fun working with Rajdeep on Newswiz, and he, with what gusto he hosted that show, because he's been a quizzer. On our very first quiz time, he came from St. Xavier's as part of the team. Yeah, in '85, and he's an avid he takes a lot of interest in that, and he brought that enthusiasm and gusto to it, and he paid attention to doing it, and even Saurabh. He did the Hindi thing called the Lalan Top Quiz, which he took actually very different personality, character, attitude, but he took pains to figure it out and do it. So, as I said, there are different approaches. Whatever works for the viewer at the end is what is fine.
Which I will just tell you one thing. I did not get my answer. I should have put a buzzer here for
Who's
time.
your favorite? Lots of favorites. Yeah, lots of. No, I mean, I wouldn't like to name any one. Yeah.
For me, it's Mr. Bachchan. Let's be
He's
plain.
outstanding. He's wonderful.
I think 90% of India.
And I don't think there's anybody else, not just in this country, but worldwide, who could conduct that show with his elan and his sense of drama and empathy. He's in a league of his own.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Anyway, now I'm going to just ask you a few. I wouldn't say this is because you're working with Gen Z, so it struck me. Why not ask you a few things about Gen Z? You've been interacting with them. Have you spoken to a few?
To some extent, yes. But the ones who came as contestants and finally did that, they weren't very. They belonged age-wise to Gen Z, but they were not the sort of your lot.
Yes. I was reading in the paper today. Two twins. A set of twins, that would be probably the correct, who got really high marks in this JEE exam. One of them gave up their his phone. He said, I don't want to use it because it distracts me,
Yeah,
So the go-getters are usually very different from the...
Can be very different.
Yeah, they're going against the tide.
This lot, they're more, they don't have to be, but many of them are very nerdy. And you should do it like that, but it takes all
nerds
kinds.
will inherit
the
the earth. We've been told, not the meek, the nerds shall. But anyway, like, how do you suppose, do you say nowadays, do you say hello? How did you say hello when you were young to your peers? Was it like, what's up, bro, is the...
No,
hello was
I joined college when I was 16, 17. We used to finish the 11th and I joined when I came to Delhi University. They think that time, it was just post Woodstock. So it was make peace.
Peace, bro.
Make love, not war. Peace, like man, cool. It was a very different kind of language that was going on there. On the one hand, there was that. On the other hand, which walked hand in hand, actually, was revolution. Because there was Che Guevara. And there was, it was cool to be radical because, all the youth revolts all over the country had happened in the late 60s and 70s. So there were those both worlds. So you straddle the worlds and you did it in that way, depending on your interests and your orientation, of course, and all that kind of stuff. So the language was very much like that. But what went around at that time was it was in the cool psychedelic mode. A lot of it was like that.
Even if you're not dope, just look dope.
Absolutely. No, your language was.
Yes, that's true. But man survived and became dude, which has become bro, and then I think it's become bra. So now
maybe via the Bronx.
So now you say
Harlem or whatever it is become bra.
The latest I know is you don't even say hello, or you don't say what's up or sup. Now it's sus.
So just minimal.
Sus.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, fine, maybe this. But yeah, but I did research for this, so you have to give me credit.
I'm sure. No, absolutely, I'm sure.
Do you know that there are some more? There's something called as Fleecon.
No, frankly, I don't. Tell me more about it.
Fleecon is something that. Have you heard of Billie Eilish?
Yes, of
The
course.
singer,
Of
yes.
course.
So it's something that she started. She talks, not started. Maybe nobody knows where all these things. So it's like really right or something like that. Then we in our age would call someone a drip. Maybe that would
Yes,
be a
yes.
negative connotation.
Absolutely.
Nowadays it is not.
Really?
If you're a drip, then you're cool.
Language, like fashion, changes. But I think as long as you understand, and the point of language is to communicate, sometimes it is to exclude.
Oh,
Because we are
yes.
so cool, only we understand each other. I'm sure it happens even now. When we were very young, there was always these other code languages that you
The
spoke.
P language.
And X, whatever the sound
Yeah, I
is,
remember.
etc., so that only a few people would understand. People still do it if they, if they only understand one Indian regional language, or maybe they follow French. Anything that they want to communicate with each other, don't want somebody else to understand, use that. So language can be used for exclusion too,
Yeah.
and it still is. Especially if you're young and you don't want your parents to cotton on, or other people, or whatever it is, you use that kind of language. But if you want to communicate, you have to try and expand to as much as possible. Of course, some of those words become very emotive and very expressive, and those are the ones that survive. But otherwise, it's like fashion.
Yes.
In one season you have so many looks. The first time I remember, I went to the United Kingdom. Where was it? It was mid-80s actually. It was pretty late in life. My sastral is there, and everyone was wearing either turquoise or pink.
I can imagine.
Those were trend, and you don't realize how the fashion
Very
industry
Austin
actually works
Powers,
there.
I must say. Either turquoise or pink.
And that was just for a few that year, for a few seasons. Then it changes to something else.
Now,
it changes to
now
something else.
it's just black and
Yes,
beige.
yes. So as I said, it changes from in between. There was orange. There was different kinds of things. Every year, every season, and there are people who determine that kind of thing. And it goes. Language too. I think it has its changes like that. But certain kinds of language, the broader one, in the mainstream language, there have been a lot of changes. For instance, the English that we speak, and I believe English is an Indian language, is much more simplified than, say, what our fathers spoke or what our grandparents spoke. It's so different, so it works differently.
Yes.
And internationally too.
Yes, yes,
A
definitely.
lot of our bureaucraties and legalese has been simplified internationally. And that mainstream direction is where we need to, I think, all of us need to modernize. And
That's a TV person speaking, because I remember as a television journalist, I was taught by my boss to speak in easy language, a language that connects. But in print, you of course aim for something else.
yes,
So,
because print also you can reread something.
yeah, yes, that's true. That's very
So
that's very
on
true.
radio and television, once you've heard it goes, you can't necessarily, unless it's video,
Ah.
where you can play back.
The playback has happened only now. I mean,
Yes, yes.
earlier आ गया चला गया सीधा प्रसारण
right.
है. अब कुछ नहीं हो सकता. Anyway, it was great speaking to you. I'm letting go of the quiz because I have realized that Mr. Basu is going to give me not an optional answer. He's going to give me a long answer. So I will let go of the quiz. But it was great speaking to you.
Good to speak to you too.
And it was also an honor because, as I told you, that I've also seen you on screen, and this is the first time I'm meeting you. It was absolutely a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming.
A pleasure for me too. Thank you.
So I hope you do take out some time and switch on and see what's happening in Sony Live, and the show is called Quizzer of the Year.
Koti.
Koti, okay.
Koti salam.
That's a good
Koti.
thing. He's come up with the acronym, so you don't have to worry about it. Koti Salam to Koti.
Yes.